So listen, I don't know if we're up. Are we up online yet? Not sure. I don't see it, but if we are, hit the share button and send that out with your friends and your family. If we're not yet, we will soon be up on YouTube and on Facebook and Twitch for all of our for all of
I
all
guess I
of
need to
our.
go get a Twitch account. Is that what I have to do now to be able to get on Twitch?
You don't have to. No, you don't have to. But we are up online on Facebook because I see it right there. And
Right, that's nice.
so yeah, man. Listen. So I want to talk today about the Philly cops who are getting their jobs back.
Mm.
You know, after posting hateful, misogynistic, racist, homophobic, Islamophobic,
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semitic,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much anti-human garbage on the internet.
Yep.
But some of them are going to be getting their jobs back. And it's harder to get rid of them than it is to get rid of Netanyahu.
I think they've done that now.
Almost, but I mean, look, they've almost done it before. Until Netanyahu is gone and like gone for good, I won't necessarily believe it. It looks like Israel is trying to turn the Israeli government is trying to turn a corner. They know it's not a good look, and they
Mm.
know he's keeping them in a bad place.
Yeah.
And you know that this is also a part of Biden's type of diplomacy, which is not done out in public like a Donald Trump. But you
Mm-hmm.
can feel that a lot of this has come from pressure from the United States and the Biden administration that y'all got to get rid of him or we're going to have to do something. And so it looks like Netanyahu is gone. But yeah, Garland agrees. That's all Biden. Yep, that's what I'm saying. As like, Biden, he is definitely the 21st century version of, I can't remember what president that was in the early 20th century, speak softly but carry a big stick.
Yeah.
That's
That's
Biden.
Harry Truman, right? Was that Truman?
I think it was like way before Truman. I want to say it's like either Teddy Roosevelt or
Maybe
well,
it's, yeah, you're right. Teddy Roosevelt, yeah.
but he ain't hardly speak softly. He was about
No.
as bright. If he had a Twitter account, he would have been worse than Trump. Nobody loved the camera as much as Teddy Roosevelt, bro, except maybe Frederick Douglass. If those two had camera phones, man, we'd had all kind of pictures of the two of them.
Mm.
But yeah, but in all seriousness, you can feel Biden's influence in this backdoor diplomacy that has finally forced Israel to make some real tough decisions because this last round with the Palestinian people has just been awful. And as much as Netanyahu would want to portray himself as like the victim in this, folks see it for what it is.
Yeah.
They've got to get new leadership in there to resolve this once and for all. We cannot keep kicking the can down the street for the next, leadership in these two respective countries. And you need some grown-ups to do this. And so thank God that they're going to turn the corner. Now, if only we could get that same kind of thing in a city like Philly when it comes back to policing and find a way to keep these bad police officers look, if you are so bad that Philly police have said you're so bad that you shouldn't be a cop, how is it that you get your job back?
It's
Repeat it.
called a union contract.
Yeah, but it's not just the contract, is it? It's the arbitration.
Here's the
It's
thing. Well, the arbitration, but that's written in the contract, right? I mean, here's the thing.
yeah.
I'm pro-union. Matter of fact, I was out at the airport yesterday with SEIU and Unite here. They're in the middle of contract negotiations. American Airlines is acting up as usual. There's a bill in the city council to deal with prevailing wage. And American Airlines, it reminded me years ago when you and I, we were at that city council going in to talk to council
Mm-hmm.
members. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as we left one of the council offices, the lobbyist for American Airlines, went right back in the lobby behind us. I mean, into the office
Yeah.
behind us.
Yeah.
And so, they're fighting right now for that. So we're totally pro union, but I'm not pro FOP union. Because they do some crazy stuff in their contracts, and the city's given them leeway all these years, including the fact that there's this arbitration process that's really, in my estimation, not totally unbiased, that allows these cops over and over again who do horrendous things on their jobs get their jobs back. And a lot of people do not have an arbitration process that allows them to get their jobs back. You get fired, you get fired. And if you got to sue, you sue.
Hmm.
But I mean, most of these cops can't sue the city. They can only go through the arbitration process because if they were to sue the city, the city might turn around and sue them for costing them money and for the various and sundry reasons that they were fired in the first place. So it's a process that's not helpful. It is actually detrimental to the mental well-being and the ability of the citizens of Philadelphia and the ability of police to be able to build community relationships.
Hmm.
Nobody wants bad cops on the streets.
Right. Well, some people do.
Well, if they think they're not going to be the subject of the bad cops, I guess they want bad cops on the street.
Yeah, I mean, so let's hope that the creation of the CPOC, the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, will eventually, if not in this first iteration, eventually get to the place where it becomes the lead investigator on these types of matters.
Mhm.
Because see, I'm convinced, right? You can't tell me otherwise, that some of these, so it's not just that arbitrators that we don't know who they are and what they do, or if they're just like, as us, use the baseball metaphor again, if they're just calling balls and strikes, if that's what's happening, or is it that they're getting these cases that literally have technicalities in them, right? And technical mistakes that basically, like you said, if you have a union contract and it's pretty ironclad, and if you then, when it comes to discipline, do not follow every single step that your rules say, it's going to be overturned. It doesn't matter if you're like, if you like posted things like death to Islam, it's going to be overturned because they didn't follow the procedures. Now, the way that it currently happens is that you are basically tried as an officer by other police officers who take up the case against you in the PBI, the Police Board of Inquiry. And so you are tried by your peers, basically.
Mhm.
And let's say they miss dotting one I or crossing one T.
Mhm.
They find you guilty, the commissioner fires you, goes to arbitration. In arbitration, they discover the missing I or the uncrossed T, and they say, oh, you have to get your job back with back pay because they didn't file this 13 days after, they did it 14 days after. They missed the deadline by 2 minutes or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I just happen to believe, and again, I don't know this for a fact. This is my conjecture, my opinion, that some of these people are probably throwing these cases. That some of the folk who are doing the investigations are just doing a bad job, and I think some of them are doing it on purpose.
Mhm.
Which it makes it easier. So it looks like, well, we did our due diligence, we ran them
Right.
out, arbitrators upheld it. But if you ever look into the arbitrations, I guarantee you a lot of that is not like the arbitrator said, oh, this person should get their job back because they have a First Amendment right to say death to Islam as an officer. It's more like you just didn't do the process right. Call me crazy.
I mean, I mean that could be the case. I mean, it could very well be the case. Some people are throwing it. I just don't know that this arbitration process that we have set up is 100% unbiased. That's all I'm saying. I'm just not convinced of that. I mean, some of the horrendous things that many of these officers have done that they
Yeah,
managed to get their jobs back on, that just seems a little suspect to me. Just a little
yeah,
suspect. We've got cops that beat people up, cops that
yep,
shot people.
yep.
Now we have the folk for the Plainview Project, and they're getting their jobs back. And I'm like, I'm beginning to question whether this, who's related to who at the arbitration company that all these folk are getting their jobs back. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, Raphael, you're on to something. And you didn't say it this way, but I'm going to add this. In the spirit of Israel getting the Israeli government getting rid of Netanyahu, pushing him out. That's what the FOP needs to do to McNesby. Because Raphael says McNesby is a poor spokesperson for the FOP.
No,
They need.
John McNesby represents what the FOP represents. Ignorance.
Oh,
That's exactly what it is. I mean, come on.
yeah, but yeah, it's true. I can't even debate that.
I mean, he represents what they represent.
Oh man, it's a bunch of old retirees there, like really mad at us this morning because that's who really makes up the majority of the voting block there. A
If the
bunch of
majority of,
retired
well,
cops.
I mean, look, if you're a black part of the problem is the whole system of bringing cops in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because how in a city the size of Philadelphia, the demographics of Philadelphia, do you have a white FOP? The majority of the leadership of the FOP is white. Why is the majority of the police force white? It doesn't
Well,
make any sense.
I got one better than that for you. I'll talk to you about on the other side of the break.
Hmm.
The more quote unquote progressive liberal side of the same coin in Philadelphia.
Well, actually, I had to, yeah, we could talk about that. I had to
I went
busted
through some
myself
of
a
that
little bit for
yesterday
that.
with the historical commission.
Yeah, did you?
I sure did. One of our churches. Yep. I
Mm,
mean, I was just like having flashbacks of First African Baptists and so many other churches that have had to deal with these people in these communities who want to slap a historic designation on your building, whether you want it or not.
right.
And you go before a historical commission committee on designation, and every single person on the committee is white
Mm,
in Philadelphia
mm,
in 2021,
wow.
making decisions not just about the past, but how that impacts the present
That's
and
right.
people's ability to sell a property and move on into the future. And you know,
Even fix the property up.
I'm a preservationist, you know that, but I'm
Right.
also a realist that recognizes that people are more important than any building, and that's always the case.
Right.
You're never gonna tell me we're gonna put a building in front of people. That's just I don't know how you even frame your mind and mouth to say that.
Hmm.
If you want to save a building, then you go get the money at market rate and buy it from the people and move on. But don't kill their opportunity to move on. But we'll talk about that on the other side. It's 6:22. We'll be right back on the other side of this break. It's the Power Hour. Don't you go anywhere.
Clark Roofing Company has over 30 years of quality roofing experience, providing exceptional customer service, honesty, and professionalism. Clark Roofing is a second-generation master roofer, installing top-quality roofing systems for commercial and residential properties across the tri-state area. For fast, dependable service, call 215-365-ROOF. That's 215-365-7663. In Philadelphia, everyone is reading Jericho Brown's The Tradition, the 2020 Pulitzer Prize winner in poetry and this year's Free Library One Book, One Philadelphia featured selection. The Free Library will celebrate 8 inspired weeks of programming with a free virtual grand finale on June 9th at 7:30 p.m. The event will include a reading and conversation with Jericho Brown and poet Ursula Rucker, followed by an intergenerational panel of artists, activists, and community leaders, including poet Sonia Sanchez and others. Details at freelibrary.org/onebook.
Are you looking for a job? WURD has got you covered. We just launched a brand new job portal featuring and art organizations. Visit the portal right now to see jobs from WURD Radio, the Kimmel Center, Her Foods, Always Best Care, and more. Apply today. Visit our livelihood website at wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com and click jobs. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler. We are here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news happenings around Philadelphia and, of course, our opinion. And we have plenty of those to share with people every single day. I just want to say congratulations to Reverend Tyler on his award from the from the Urban League last night for the power of the Black Church. You go ahead and do your thing, brother. Lay it out there.
Well, it was actually a nice evening. It was already prepackaged as a virtual awards presentation. So shout out to Andrea Custis with the Philadelphia Urban League and her staff and team that recognized Reverend Marshall Mitchell, Reverend Alan Weiler, and myself. And I think the theme that you saw in all of our presentations is that we really kind of felt like we were receiving this on behalf of so many people.
Sure.
For me, it was really about the work with Power and the work with Mother Bethel. And so I had been in awe of the two of them over the last year. I mean, really just watching, Alan and Marshall, they're friends, just really watching the two of them at work during COVID and in just their own respective ways. And, you know, I mean, COVID brought out the best and worst in people, you know, and so, but they're two examples of people that really brought out the best. So to be honored with them, I thought was just really just was just really just made it all that more special, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, but speaking of the power of the Black church, right? Because that was the name of the award. There's an interesting thing that's been happening in Philadelphia of late. So Philadelphia has the ability to, they allow for any group to come and designate a property historic, whether the owner of the property wants it or not, at all. So I can come to your house and say, you know what, Royster, somebody famous lived here. You didn't even know this 150 years ago and on this land. And so we're going to designate this spot. And you're like, yeah, well, that's cool, but I don't really want that. It's like, I don't want the attention. I don't want the sign. I don't want that. And it's going to mess me up if I want to resell my house. Right. Like, yeah, well, tough. We're going to do it. And you're like, no, you can't do that. And they're like, yes, we can. And lo and behold, you find out that they can, and often they do. The Historical Commission for the city, which is an appointed board, has 3 standing committees, and one committee is on historic preservation, and they are the ones that review all of these applications. What has happened lately in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, is that a number of Black congregations that are pretty much the last groups to ever leave a gentrifying neighborhood, who have already paid the biggest penalty for trying to be faithful, right? So all your members have left, all the businesses have left, everyone has left except the church. And the church tries to stay, tries to fight the good fight. And then 15 years later, you look up, there's nobody around that looks like you. The new neighbors complain about your choir rehearsal being too loud, like in Oakland. They complain about your double parking on Sundays. Everything is a hassle and an issue. And finally, you're like, we just got to go. You get ready to leave, put it up for sale, and all of a sudden, this new historical society in your neighborhood decides they want to designate your property as historical because it was built by someone famous, or I don't know, it has a nice aesthetic, and they don't want a developer to come in, tear it down, and then put up another apartment or condo. Right. Now, the issue is that once you're designated, it makes it a whole lot more difficult trying to sell a historically designated building in Philadelphia than one that is not designated. There are ways to get around it, but most developers like, I'm not touching it. It's already hard enough. I'm already got to go through some neighborhood group to begin with. I don't want another layer of problems, which is this designation. And so your appraised value may be at $2 million when you start. And as a result of that, designation may drop to as low as $1 million, which severely hinders the ability of the existing congregation to move to a new location. Right. So you're usually talking about like 50 to 100 people who are left, and the only thing that they've got is a building and an asset. So we went through that yesterday with the public hearing. So I'm not talking about anything that's private. It was a public hearing for one of our AME churches in Philadelphia. And, you know, I don't know, man, it's just the nerve of like 5 white people on a committee that, you know, just the optics of that alone in Philly. No Black people, no Hispanic people, no Asian American people, no indigenous people, 5 white people on a standing committee telling a Black congregation they're going to designate you against your wishes because of a white historical society in your neighborhood.
Wow. Is the Historical Commission appointed by the mayor?
I believe so. And I think there are other people who are on there who are, so like, experts. I think president of council gets to appoint someone as his designee, and the commerce director and others get to appoint people who are their designees who go. But the Historical Commission itself is not very diverse. I think there may be 1 Black person on the Historical Commission itself, maybe 2. But this standing committee, there are 3 standing committees that are set up, and I think each committee has like 1 person from the commission, and then they bring outside people like architects and architectural historians and what have you. But it just feel, so you're talking to people who there's nobody even on there who can even relate to your experience, who are dealing with this purely as a piece of architecture. And of course, they don't want the building to be gone because it's going to change the way that the neighborhood looks. But at the same time, my God, what concern do we have for this congregation? I keep thinking, look, I reached out to some lawyers yesterday and said, is this not a case for infringement of religious freedom? I mean, they say, well, it might be, but it kind of feels like a stretch on religious accommodation. But I'm like, well, I don't know why. I mean, how can you designate somebody's property against their wishes? And, basically you're taking money out of their pocket when you do that, which limits their ability to their religious freedom, which is to go worship where they want.
That's interesting application of that. I mean, it's tough. Again, how do you have a city that's over 60% Black, Brown, Asian Pacific Islander, and Indigenous, and there's no Black folk on that team to help make that decision about the future of the city and how it looks? And actually, we'll put, what did you say, put people over property?
I meant to, well, if I said that, I said it wrong, that we put property over people.
Well, that's we saw that in the uprisings, right?
Yeah, and that's what I meant.
Heard about the buildings. Well, and we should say it's certain properties over people, because they didn't have a problem when folk were tearing up 52nd Street, but they had a problem when they were tearing up downtown. So we just need to clarify that too, right?
Right.
And, the question is, in these historic buildings, and I don't know where this particular building was, is this a potential for regentrification? And, they want to maintain the historic space for that purpose.
It's Hickman Temple.
Absolutely about gentrification. Absolutely about gentrification.
That neighborhood has changed so fast. I mean, like a blink of an eye. And so, but again, and like I said, this was a public hearing on Zoom. So anyone could have seen it and heard it. And the congregation spoke forcefully. Reverend Nelson said that we do not want this designation.
Right.
The neighborhood historical society said, well, we do want the designation. And the commissioners, because we came with so much force, had to back up and table it for a month or two. But they all said, well, we're going to table it, but I just have to say I'm inclined to still vote for designation because, Isaac Purcell, that architect, he's not just any architect. This is Isaac Purcell we're talking about. And I'm like, yeah, it's Isaac Purcell, but what about the members of Hickman Temple?
Yeah, I mean, what about what they want? What about their money that they've poured in and the blood, sweat, and tears they've poured into that property over the years, and now that they've made that investment, they want to get their resources out and move on.
Bro, let me tell you, man, it is, again, we started this by saying as well that in this city, and I started calling council members yesterday as soon as the meeting was over. And I said, how is this possible? Please explain this to me. I thought diversity is like one of our number one goals in the city. How do you have any commission or committee that's exclusively white? I mean, it's not even like a Latina on there, right? So there's no sense of anybody in the room who's going to argue what the other side of this means, what church means. I mean, I thought in the last year we realized that church was more than buildings. If we didn't know it before, we know it now, that it really is about the people. And it feels like it just does such violence and harm, to a congregation that has already suffered multiple, losses because of how fast the neighborhood changed. And now they're like, all right, we're cutting our losses. We got to go. Can we just go? No, one more thing. Now we're going to restrict who you can sell it to.
And well, not only restrict who you sell it to, but now you can restrict the purpose of the building. You can restrict the architecture of the building. So if somebody wanted to tear it down, build houses, they can't do that. Even if they want to do work on the inside of the building, there's certain aspects where the historical society controls what kind of materials it is, what architecture has to remain in the building, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's very complicated to work with.
Yeah. So Will Megan says sounds like a lawsuit coming. I think so. I almost think that the only way you're going to change this policy is to sue the city.
Hmm.
And I hate
Hmm.
to try to take resources from our city that is already just so severely, hurt. But as you know, one of the conference trustees for the AME Church, we go through this all the time, and it's not just us. First African Baptists went through this. Reverend Terrence Griffin could tell you the horror stories of it. And some of these activists on the historic side are very well intentioned, but it's like until you have sat in the seat of those officers and those clergy people
Right.
who are trying to run a building that was meant to operate with a budget based on 1,000 people,
Hmm.
and you're trying to run it with 100 or less, and those are mostly senior citizens on fixed incomes.
Hmm.
It's just, again, it's not right to say to them that we're going to literally take money out of your pocket. And so, yeah, so I think that a lawsuit might be the only way to make the city finally stop this. I just don't think that we should ever allow designation to happen against the wishes of the designee.
So why can't they just stick a historic marker outside and let the building go? I mean, that's, call it a day. This is how you break even. You put, one of those
Hmm.
blue and gold things that they put up with a little
Uh,
placard that says Hickman Temple was here, blah 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 blah, and you keep on moving.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that couldn't be acceptable. And so, yeah, but that's where we are. And so, Asa says the only way to change the policy is through the courts, Rev. I think you're right.
Hmm.
Tawanda says they think they're doing us a favor. They're trying to save us
Mm.
again
Well,
and
well,
make
you just
choices
said a
for
word right.
us.
That's a whole sermon in itself, right?
Look, and make choices for us again.
Mm.
It is, and I know a lot. Look, I know all of these people who are involved on the historic side because I work with them all the time through Mother Bethel. And I'm like, don't call me apologizing. Just withdraw the designation because the people have told you they don't want it, and yet you insist on it, and you're telling us about your neighborhood and the building. Well, Hickman Temple was there before any of y'all got here,
Hmm.
and
And,
volunteer
and, and
picking.
and was there before it gentrified. I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
Will
Before
Mega.
before the University of Pennsylvania creeped up Baltimore Pike, right?
Yeah, before the microbrewery across the street,
That's right.
when it was still like a bodega.
That's right.
When
A
I,
little corner store, right?
yeah, when Joe Patterson was the pastor there back in the day, the late
Hmm.
Reverend Joe Patterson.
I
Will
remember
Megan
him.
says, why do so few people go to church these days, even pre-COVID? Because they can't get parking.
That's right. I mean, that's the one problem with Hickman, right? The parking down there is horrendous.
Oh my God! Yeah, they're trying to get to greener pastures, man, and folks trying to hold them back. You know. So yeah, and I mean, look, and then Sheila Booker says the benevolent white folk who feel we aren't capable of making our own decisions. Yeah, name the people on the commission. Well, just pull it up. It's on the commission's website. The Philadelphia Historical Commission. This is a committee, by the way, of the commission. So the committee is appointed by the commission. There's one commissioner who's on the committee. The other four, they make recommendations to the commission to vote up or down. And of course, the commission usually does what they say.
So can we put out our appeal for black architects, black engineers,
They
black
are telling.
art historians, black building historians? Please go to the Philadelphia Art Commission and make application to become a part of their team.
Well, I'm gonna just tell you this: that I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to find this time over the next year. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I am going to have to find the time to wage a campaign against City Hall to diversify the Historical Commission and
Mhm.
all of its subcommittees.
Mhm.
They have way too much power, and they have way too much power, way too much influence. And anytime you can impact people's, their dollars,
Right.
that's something that needs to have some balance. And the attitude in the city has generally been that the only people who know anything about anything historically or about architecture or history are white persons from Penn, and begrudgingly maybe Temple and Drexel. But that's not the case. There are tremendous black architects in the city, and like you just said, art historians and persons who bring a different kind of sensitivity to this work. And you need all of those voices in the room to bring balance. You shouldn't. I mean, they were so caught off guard yesterday. That's the funniest part, Royster. They literally didn't see this coming, and they were like, "We must admit, this is a little tense. We weren't expecting this, so we should probably just table this and come back." And I'm thinking, like, who the hell have you been talking to? How do you literally?
They've been talking to the neighbors, the new neighbors.
Who never talked to the church, by the way, about the designation.
Right, and who do not talk to the older neighbors that have been in the neighborhood, because we don't go to the microbreweries and we don't go to the tea shop down the street. So I'm just saying, this is very problematic.
Rob, as we go to break, Rob Garland brings it back home. He said it's always property. Mm-hmm. We just acknowledged Tulsa.
It's always economics. It's about dollars and cents. That's the deal at the end of the day.
You know what's happened in some of these places? Some of these places where this has happened, and I'm not saying this about this project, but in some of these places where this has happened, the same people who fought to get the designation ended up buying the place as their own rec center or whatever, because it wasn't worth what it was before. You can get it at a cheaper rate.
Well, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. We have to keep an eye on this and see what happens.
So, why don't the preachers have economic summits now instead of marching all the time and holding protests? Actually, Raphael, a lot of preachers do have economic summits, and we talk about other things other than marching and protesting. Maybe you just have that impression, but no, all of this goes on simultaneously. We got to take a break at 6:42. When we come back, we'll finish this conversation. It is the Power Hour.
Does your pre-K to 12 student need reliable internet for digital learning? The city's PHL Connected program can help by offering free internet to eligible families. To find out if you qualify, dial 211. For language services, press 8. Learn more at phila.gov/PHL Connected.
More than joint replacement, it's total joint care. Einstein Orthopedics offers minimally invasive, same-day procedures like anterior hip replacement and knee replacement surgery. Our board-certified surgeons and dedicated team will give you personalized care every step of the way. From your first appointment to surgery to post-procedure follow-up care, Einstein Orthopedics offers everything you need to get moving again. Visit einstein.edu/totaljoint to learn more.
The Black Words Book Club. Word Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for June is Taught by Women, Poems as Resistance Language by Hakeem Adabudi. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, June 8th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio. Messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese. Exclusive articles and multimedia content and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter. Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by Allstate. Looking at the Boulevard Route 1 southbound, jammed up 9th Street down to south of Broad Street. That is ongoing construction. Also an accident in that work zone, so a heavy ride southbound on the Boulevard Route 1 early on this morning. Schuylkill Expressway westbound Broad to Passaic, a little slow through that work zone. Eastbound side, no major problems yet. Westbound Vine Expressway, some slowing 95 out to Brodigan Lake Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Southbound 95, Cobbin to Bridge, slow delays allocating through Girard. Northbound looks good. 55 north building, Deptford in the 42. Looking to save money this year? Look at Allstate. You can get the protection you need at the low prices you want. With Allstate, you can lower your rates, not only expectations. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a Word Radio weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Steven Sosna.
Good morning. We're expecting cloudy weather with a couple of scattered showers and storms rolling through the area this morning. Nothing severe with temperatures climbing into the lower 70s by lunchtime. Very muggy this afternoon, almost tropical-like. On the lookout for strong to severe storms possible, especially after 4 o'clock this afternoon, a high temperature of 81. Tonight, we'll see some showers and storms left over, low 67. For your Friday, mostly cloudy. Still a couple showers and storms possible at 80 degrees, and then get ready for the heat over the weekend. Temperatures around 90. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Steve Soss.
You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster and Mark Kelly Tyler. And hey, I just want to shout out to Ed Minner and Denise 815. Yeah, Mike is not with us today from Abington. He just could not seem to get it together and get to the program today. So, just wanted to shout that out. Also, I just wanted to
give me a word.
For those that did not know, we had Mike from Abington that called in yesterday with very, shall we say, racist comments. So, anyway, that's part of what the joke is there. I just wanted to say something. Raphael mentioned something earlier about like how come black preachers don't have economic summits, and actually Power's done several over the years. As a matter of fact, within our first year, we had 4 economic summits across the city of Philadelphia. We actually put out a report a few years ago called Black Work Matters about work and the hospitality industry here in the city of Philadelphia, and did a series of meetings and hearings across the city of Philadelphia on the topic. And so, and we'll probably, continue to do things like that over and over again. So I think it's important to know that there's a lot of work being done on this particular area, and Power has been pretty hard on the city with regard to the fact that we continue to be the poorest big city in America, and we're sort of like asking the question, like, when are you going to address this? And how are you going to address this? And we've done a series of things to talk about that, and fought battles on policies about that as well. So,
well, and can I just add to this too? I mean, so here's another comment from Raphael. Most of the black preachers are egocentric all over the country. Okay. They want to be African dictators in America, blowhards in the pulpit. That is my opinion. Okay, so you're entitled to your opinion. Let me give you my opinion. While that may be true for some, I certainly would not characterize it as most. I think that is a stretch. Most that I know are really trying hard. And most preachers pastor churches that are less than 100 people. Many of them are women. Most have a second and third job and kind of pastor for free. They give to their churches more than their churches ever give to them. They're not they're not the big names that you would know on TV. They do it in storefronts. They do it from their homes. They're just, really good people who are just trying their best to help out. Right. And so that's really what most black preachers are. You certainly do have some who I think I would agree with your characterization, that want to be little dictators in their pulpits, but that's not most. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice even when we kind of reduce, kind of what we do down to, just quote unquote like activism and, civil rights, whatever, as though that is nothing. Because the truth of the matter is, the reason why black preachers have, long been at the forefront of, the civil rights movement, and even in, the modern era, has been because black preachers were the first people in the country who were economically independent of the white power structure.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you didn't, if your job depended on a salary from other black people, the system couldn't fire you.
Right.
And so you were free so Richard Allen was free to say what he wanted to say. He wrote a pamphlet decrying, slavery in the 1700s. He used George Washington's funeral as an opportunity to say, hey, Washington said he would free his slaves after Martha died, even though she said, But he took that and wrote a pamphlet about being anti-slavery. He organized boycotts of produce and clothing that was made by enslaved labor. I mean, he and Absalom Jones and others, they used their position of independence, and that followed, right? And so on and on and on up into the present. A lot of what black folk have today, and it's like most people who are the biggest critics of the black church are people who never stop to think. You're walking around free and not on the back of somebody's bus, in large part because of what black preachers did.
That's right.
And I mean, and I'm not making this up. This is not conjecture. This is fact. Mm-hmm. I mean, you go back prior to 1960, whatever, and you show me a movement where the black church was not an instrumental part of that in opening doors, in utilizing their position and their place and their access, and more than anything else, their freedom.
That's right. To
speak out without fear of losing their job at the post office or down washing clothes for some white family or someone else. And they said what their members felt but could not say.
That's right.
So show some respect. That's all I'm saying.
That's very true. It's actually interesting when you look at the movements in this country, the big movements like the abolition movement. Yeah. Even so, I mean, we don't tell the story. We often talk about unionization, talk about the Molly Maguires and the impact of the Catholic Church on that. But like black unions were actually segregated from white unions very early on. And the black church was still instrumental in being a meeting place for people to do union organizing and things of that organize. A. Philip Randolph, a deeply faithful man, right, deeply connected to the black church, doing the organizing work of the Pullman's Society, those that worked on the railroads. All those movements, right, the civil rights movement that we understood, all of that, even into this present day when Black Lives Matter is still deeply connected to leadership in the black church, right? It doesn't look exactly the same, but it's still engaged in a deep way in this particular moment.
Absolutely. I mean, so then one other thing here. So I see, Will, you really want me to like name the names of people on the commission and the committees. I understand where you're going with that, but I give you a name, Jim Kinney.
There you go.
I'll give you a name, Darrell Clark.
Mm-hmm.
And then 16 other council members. Because at the end of the day, see, look, I'm not gonna fault the commission for being on the commission. If someone asked you to be on the historical commission and you're an architect, it is an honor. It's like, why would I say no? It's not like you're walking in thinking like, oh, then you get there and it's like, damn, it's like all white people here. You didn't, I mean, that's not your fault. It's not the people on the committee's fault. It's the fault of the people who have the responsibility to make sure that every department in this city looks like this city. Right. And so if this city is 40% black, 40% white, 20%, Latino, Latina, Asian American, then our committees and commissions ought to reflect that in a very real sense. Mm-hmm. And so that's why my first phone calls were not to the folk on the committee or the commission that I know. What do they know? They can't put anybody on the commission. It was to the people who were in power.
That's right.
So that's who we need to call. And that's where we need to put the pressure to change the makeup of that commission and find similar commissions that may look the same. They want to herd us into all the kind of the categories that they feel like these are the things we're interested in. No, we're interested in the whole thing.
So I just want to say something about that real quick, right?
Yeah.
So, because I do think that a lot of times black folk are herded into places where it comes to, economic difficulty, to gun violence, youth activities, things like that, right? And the bottom line is like, we are not monolithic, right? We have black folk that are architects. We have black folk that can lead commissions and do a variety of other issues, and that every day is not a bad day, right? And so it's like, we've got to change this narrative about perpetually being in crisis and we have to point to the hope that is in our community at the same time, the possibilities, the deep imagination, innovation, and creativity that could actually change the whole thing around.
Word, man. So we want to be a part of the, put us on the committees with the Commerce Department.
There you go.
Put us on the committees with the deals with schools.
Mm-hmm.
Put us on the committees that deal. I mean, look, if there is something that deals with the way the city operates, then trust me, there's somebody that's skilled, that's African American, that's Latino, Latina, that's Asian American, or Asian American Pacific Islander, that has some expertise and would also bring some real value. I mean, you shouldn't have meetings where you're shocked as a committee when the community raises up on you. You should have known that was coming because somebody in the room is saying, look, we got a problem with this one.
Well, they need a community organizer. That's what they need. But that's a whole
they were like,
story.
Oh, my God. Thank God this is on Zoom.
I got you. All right, everybody. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you for checking out the Power Hour. Thank you, Reverend Tyler, for everything you do. Thank you, Coesa, for holding down the boards and making sure that we're on the air every single morning. Thank you to everybody.
Hey, Royce,
what?
I'm sorry to cut you, please. Will said, can we bring Mayor Kinney and Councilman Clark for an interview on this topic, please? Will, if you can book it, we will certainly do it. But I'm just telling you, I don't think they're going to do it for us, but if you can book it, you tell us the day it is done. I'm sorry, bro.
Okay, I got you. All right. Thank you to everybody listening to us on the air through the app. Those that are checking us out through Alexa. Hey, Alexa, turn on WURD Radio. Who are watching us on Twitch as well today. We appreciate you. Stay tuned now for Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. And listen, family, do us a favor. Go out, change the damn world. Because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.